So, one of the skills that I'm still practicing, which is part of embodiment, is learning how to be more fluid, especially when it comes to mothering. Now, what I mean by that is before motherhood and entering into motherhood, I didn't realize, but I was a control freak. I realized that I scheduled everything and I needed everything to turn out a certain way. And if it didn't, I had to figure out how to make it that way. And you can see how that wouldn't work in motherhood. And so I finally came to this place of it's not going to work. I have to be more fluid and I have to release this need to control. And at that time, I was just starting the somatic work and of really developing this relationship with my body. And I was like, okay, so I'm just gonna be fluid and just like not care and let everything kind of go, which that obviously didn't work. But what that revealed to me is how my pattern was to be in extremes, because in extremes, it gave me some sense of familiarity. And even when I was just completely letting go, it gave me this false sense of certainty in a way where I was feeling the same emotions and experiences in my body as when I was controlling. Because even as I was letting things go and being more fluid, I could still feel that. And I'm like, I'm just gonna let it go, whatever. It didn't work out. I'm a bad mom, and I would just spiral into the story. So I was able to take two totally different actions, but it was still the same thing. Once I started to dive deeper, I started to realize that fluid meant that I still have structure. I still have, my schedule, but if things don't work out in my favor, to let that moment go, to release, or to find another way. And that, my friend, was the hardest thing to do, because it's like I had to operate on one extreme or the other to be able to have the structure and to release kind of interrupted this pattern in how I would experience myself. Because in order to be fluid and then go back to structure and not be in this ongoing loop of I need to control everything, it required me to really inhabit my body and notice the subtle sensations that led to thoughts and just impulses. Because again, when you have been operating or experiencing yourself in a certain way, there is this pattern that loops. It didn't understand the experience of true fluidity is being able to pivot, right? And then coming back to structure. And I'm doing my best to articulate it, but what I realize is being able to be fluid is understanding that structure is needed, simultaneously understanding that structure isn't everything, and allowing some room for uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, that structure can also change with what comes in the uncertainty. And so much of what I needed when I was operating in that loop of extremes was certainty. It was certainty of the action that I was taking, or the certainty of the story that I was telling myself that I'm lacking. But both of those things, because they're coming from the same energetic intention that I must force or fix to prove my worthiness, it was both telling me the same thing. I need to manage and control so I can feel worthy despite, all of this unease that I'm feeling. Or I completely let go and I'm just so unworthy. And so this is why it's also never about the action that you take. It is about the intention, but to understand your intention is really about learning how your body communicates learning how the sensations and the experience in your body then outwardly expresses itself. And so this is a lot to explain, and I'm trying to find more ways to kind of explain this in a more simpler way. But currently right now it's so fascinating how being fluid and letting a moment of uncertainty arise and not completely being like, well, I guess that didn't work out, but just being like, oh, this happened, staying in the uncertainty, letting the thing unfold, but still continuing with my schedule or structure or whatever it is, right? Has been extremely hard for me, because what I feel in my body is like, this is not the way that we do things. We must figure it out. And it also just reveals my relationship with uncertainty, which is still not perfect, which is an ongoing, I feel like, relationship that many of us, or all of us, are going to have to deepen. Because what I'm also realizing for myself is, if I really want to experience myself differently, if I want to experience more abundance, the requirement is to allow myself to be in that uncertainty for that thing to unfold. Because if I'm constantly controlling and doing the same things, I'm not in uncertainty. Therefore, I'm not going to experience myself differently. There's